Joe says Lucille has messed his mind up. But was it the girl?
Just sort of going over what I would want to bring up for this referral slip. And my mind hasn't really changed in the last couple days. But at least I have two things in mind. I know we're trying to keep it short, but one of them fits within the thing that you're like, I'm not saying you got to do this, but if this is the thing, one of them fits within that, I would say.
Okay, that's fine. That's fine. No, I guess I know you. Who knows when we have actually officially started this episode? Because, well, these episodes are also much more casual anyway.
Yeah, because we don't really do this that much at the beginning of the
regular
of the higher numbered episodes.
The big episodes where, you know, the full ones with books or short stories. This is usually what we do, where it's our referral slips. We're VD Clinic. I'm Vanessa. That's Daeron.
Hello.
Introduce ourselves formally. Anybody just now tuning in, I guess, and catching the madness for a first time.
If one of your wonderful friends added this in secret to your phone and you're just finding out about it.
I know. Or it's one of those malfunctions or something with Apple where it all of a sudden secretly adds it on its own.
Yep. Or you're just a subscriber to the wonderful Legion Podcast Network feed.
That could be the other thing. Yes. Anyway. So, yes, we are the VD Clinic, and our referral slips are our little recommendations. And we're trying to, I know we've been longer in our last couple ones, and so this one definitely, I think, is going to be on the shorter side. I do just want to say, as an afterthought on the Oscar thing, no, I did not do great this year. And I knew I wasn't going to tell you the truth. Because there were so many things I hadn't seen, and I feel like critics were all over the place as far as who should really ultimately win the awards. So I feel like a lot of people were off too.
I think this year or was it last year or the year before that they added something like 900 more people to the Academy?
It's been in the past couple years, and I was talking about that whole thing about Oscar so white when that happened. That was 2015.
That was 2015. So 2016, 2017, they added upward close to 1,000 people. Half of whom are people of color or minorities?
Well, they had the big push for women too, and younger people, because that's another thing, is the age demographic, because even your cis white guys in the Academy are usually of an older age,
It's like Congress.
Yeah, exactly. And the Oscars, like the Academy, shouldn't be like that. No. So they've at least, I think that all of those things have made a difference. And I think you can see that in what was nominated and certainly in what won. Yeah, definitely.
It's going to be harder to predict until people get used to because I feel like the Academy gets a little bit predictable after you've seen a couple of seasons from the the current
Well, and
cast.
I this was still that predictable. The Producers Guild, they predicted it with that who they gave their big award to for Best Film of the Year was Green Book, and who won Best Picture at the Oscars? Green Book. And that's usually a predictor there, but it was still such a wild card this year. Um, but I will say I'm surprised The Favorite didn't do better at considering how nominated it was.
Yeah, I still haven't seen that. I'm so annoyed. The one Oscar movie that I haven't seen that I really want to see is the one that I can't readily find. It's Vice.
Hmm. Yeah.
I
Yeah, I
think
still
it's
want to
gonna
see that
pop.
too.
I think it's gonna pop up on streaming,
Hmm.
Hulu or Netflix or something like
Right.
that soon.
Yeah.
But the
Yeah.
DVD I don't think is available until next month.
Right.
But anyway,
Okay.
we said we were gonna try to keep it short. You bringing
I
up
know,
Green
but
Book does segue
I
into my
just,
first recommendation, but we don't
I
have to go
did,
there yet.
I just did want to like add a little afterthought on the Oscars since, we had such our big thing for last month. And yeah, I mean, I have not rushed out and, gone to see these other things, but now they're starting to become, more easily available on streaming platforms. So, you know, that's usually what happens is after the Oscars, you end up having a lot of these films come out, where you're not having to pay an extra rental fee for it. Um, so yeah, I will probably be seeing some of that stuff soon. But I'm with you. I still want to see Vice.
Yeah, I'm afraid to buy it because I don't know if it's one of those watch regularly kind of movies.
Yeah.
But yeah, I
Okay.
I don't know. But speaking of Green Book,
Hey. Yes.
anybody that is a member of the VD Clinic Facebook group or the Psychosemantic group, Monday night, the night after the Oscars, of which we previously spoke, the Smithsonian Channel aired a documentary by a female director called, I apologize. Thank you for listening if you hear me saying this wrong, but I apologize for probably butchering the pronunciation of your name. Yoruba Richin? She previously produced a film called The New Black in 2012, which was nominated for an NAACP Image Award and the GLAAD Media Award for Outstanding Documentary.
Yeah, I've heard the name before, but I don't really know necessarily her work offhand.
This is the first thing of hers that I have seen. I guess she did some previous stuff on PBS. She
Yeah.
was born in 1972 and she graduated from Brown University. But the Green Book Guide to Freedom, the people are I saw a lot of people were talking about this and I hadn't heard about it. And I had previously been to the Museum of African American History and Culture at the Smithsonian last year, and we did a little interactive Green Book thing where you get in a car and it's a touch screen interactive thing on your windscreen, and everybody that's seen the movie or is not familiar with the movie, the Green Book is a Jim Crow era book that came out that basically helped people find places that were black people in America find places that were friendly so they could travel in America because of all the racist fuckwads that exist and existed here. And, it had...
well put, racist fuckwads.
It has hotels and restaurants and all that stuff where, and so she made this documentary, and I don't think she made it for the Smithsonian, but they provided some funding and they aired it.
Yeah.
And I definitely have to recommend this documentary. It had a lot of historians weighing in. From what I understand, they don't even show the Green Book in the Green Book movie.
Oh God.
Um,
Okay.
so a lot of people were talking about, after you've watched the Oscars and everything, this documentary sort of addresses some of the inaccuracies of the Hollywood film version of the story. And I feel like people from the black character's family were a little annoyed at some of the things that were in the film.
Yes.
And
No, they have expressed their disapproval because they weren't consulted.
Okay. And this documentary looks really, really close at the creation and use of the Green Book, and talks about regular people. It talks about famous people, and especially black musicians working in the South and things like that. And Nat King Cole, obviously, he's not interviewed for the film,
Right.
And it highlights, even back then, there were a lot of women business owners that trailblazed, opening hotels and restaurants.
Yeah.
And it's a really cool documentary. It's, a little over an hour long.
I know, it's on my to-watch list.
Oh, okay.
My humongous to-watch list.
Yeah. It's hard to watch the things for straight up fun that I don't know. Sometimes I find myself being a little too tired to watch something new.
Right.
I'm like, I'm gonna not really pay attention to this, so I'm gonna watch American Pie 2, or not really, but
Well, and I'll tell you, I have the bad problem. I know I have mentioned before on here that I work too much, and I work at home a lot, and I'll work at home weird hours sometimes. Well, so I'll have something thrown on in the background. Because I've been doing that a lot more over the past few months, I've been watching fewer movies, to tell you the truth. And
Okay.
I've been watching more series, and yeah, sure, I've had that Law and Order SVU. Thankfully on Hulu, I can watch every single episode again and again and again. As just cheesy as it is at times, it's still, I don't know, something about it I kind of love. Yeah. Iced motherfucking tea, BD Wong. I mean, Mariska Hargitay, like Christopher Maloney, like you've got all these great guests on there. Oh, yeah. And you are not an actor in New York unless you've been on Law and Order. That's not what I was going to recommend on this episode, but I'm just saying I've been watching way too much of that again. But what series that there are a couple series actually I'd like to talk about and I don't think I've talked about them before. In fact, I know I haven't. Hold on. I'm having a cat situation.
Okay.
Hold on. Situate yourself, Zora.
Okay.
Okay, we're back with cat on my lap and purring into the mic. Thanks.
Sunday cat lap talk.
Sunday cat lap talk, complete with coffee. So, as I was saying before the cat interrupted me again, is that there are a couple series that I've watched at least a couple times, and I don't think I've recommended on here. Each are original streaming series, and I'm unofficially going with a women's history theme in this referral slip because it is March, Women's History Month. But so the first one is on Netflix, and it's Glow. Yeah, which is
Gorgeous
loosely-
ladies of wrestling.
right. It's inspired by the actual league, Gorgeous Ladies of Wrestling, and how that series started. And it's got Mark Maron in it. Well, I have to say, I love Mark Maron. Um, but
Mark the Gates.
it's got Allison Brie. It's got a bunch of other. Well, you've got
The
other
guy from Summer of '84 / Mad Men.
/ Mad Men. Yeah, Rich Somerville, I think is his name. He was such a dick on Mad Men.
And kind of
Anyway.
a dick in Summer of '84.
Yeah, well, kind of a dick on Glow as well. But anyway, so I don't know. I think it's the series was co-created by some of the creators of Orange is the New Black and Weeds. And I don't know, it's a great female ensemble piece because even the characters that are the more secondary characters are so fleshed out and three-dimensional. You feel that you know them as well as the primary or the lead characters, like Allison Brie, and it's refreshing to see that. And then to know that it was based on this insane thing that actually happened. And Netflix does also have a documentary on the actual Glow like series and league. So
some of those ladies look like they are reliving some of their fondest memories in that documentary.
yes, they're such badasses. They are such badasses. So yeah, and it's funny, I had been telling my mom she needed to watch it because when she was a kid, she used to go to wrestling matches and stuff with her brothers, like back in the days of like Gorgeous George and that kind of thing in the 50s and 60s. So I was like, Mom, okay, and she loved women's roller derby and all that shit, all this crazy stuff. Like my mom's like hardcore, so I'm like, you might enjoy this. And when she was here, actually visiting me in December, I got her started watching it, and she's like, "Oh my God, this is so good!" Like, so yeah, and whatever on I have a streaming account for her, so yeah, then on her own, she breezed through the 2 seasons. So it's a very quick series to get through because they're half-hour episodes, but there's so much there that's in each episode, and I mean, in both from a comedic angle as well as a dramatic angle, and that's hard to do, I think, in a half an hour time period.
Yeah.
And like I said, the characters feel pretty fleshed out. And congratulations to the SAG award to their stunt crew.
Oh, yeah,
TV.
that's also well earned.
For TV series, they got the best stunt ensemble, award. So I'm like, it's kudos there because they really fucking deserve it. Yeah, yeah. But so there's that. Do we want to take a quick break and then come back to finish the show?
Sure.
Okay. Be back in a moment.
Hey, Andrew.
Hey, Maddie.
Do you like horror movies?
I sure do.
Well, did you know that most horror movies are inspired by real-life horror?
Really? Like what?
Well, take The Shining, for instance. That's based on Stephen King's real-life addictions, or The Purge, which could be our country any minute now.
Oh, and The Strangers, which is based on a real-life murder. People should be talking about these things.
Hey,
Guys.
Oh, hey, Producer Michael.
Hi.
Well, I hate to break it to you, but somebody already is. It's you!
That's right. We are Friday the 13th, the podcast where we talk about horror in real life and horror in media, all from an LGBTQ perspective.
Because we gay, y'all.
We are proud members of the Legion Podcast Network, and we can be found on iTunes, SoundCloud, Stitcher, or wherever your favorite podcasts are found.
And follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Come along with us on this crazy journey, and as always,
Get slayed.
This'll keep you quiet. Oh, hi there. I didn't see you. You caught me cutting a new show. I'm Bo Ransdell, and I'm one of the many creators you can find on Legion Podcasts. I said quiet! My fellow podcasters and I work hard to bring you the best in horror podcasting, but that comes at a cost. Wouldst thou like to live deliciously? Not that, but also yes. No, what I'm getting at is that there are server costs, costs for good microphones and software for editing, all the things that make our shows, fun to listen to. And you can help. If you're enjoying the shows on legionpodcasts.com or in the Legion Network available on iTunes and Stitcher, just about anywhere you can download a podcast really, you can help us out and get a little something for your trouble at patreon.com/Legion Podcasts. For just $2 a month, you get a pair of movie commentaries exclusive to Patreon, and for $5, you can also join us for a monthly screening of a movie. All of that available on patreon.com/Legion Podcasts. We appreciate it, and thank you for listening. Now, back to the cutting room.
And we are back. And so I had another TV series I wanted to recommend. The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel. I don't know if you've seen this.
I haven't, but Bo
it's
was
on
talking
Amazon. I cannot recommend it highly enough. It's an hour-long comedy. I mean, it has kind of dramatic moments, but it's an hour-long comedy, essentially. It's basically a woman in the late 50s. Her marriage breaks up, and she's an Upper West Side Jewish woman, like of a certain wealthy bracket, whatever. And her marriage breaks up, and so she gets drunk after that on Manischewitz, by the way. I love it. On the kosher wine. It's fucking awesome. And then it ends up, she ends up down in the West Village, and she runs up and gets arrested alongside with Lenny Bruce because she stumbled upon stage and does a comedic set, and she starts a comedic career in a way. It kind of falls into it, and it's really well written. And the actress, Rachel Bronson, I think, she won an Emmy, I think, or a Golden Globe recently for the role. And Tony Shalhoub plays her father. Alex Bornstein plays kind of her manager, who's the kind of tough village, artsy person. And they play on some of this examination of what the comedy scene was of that era and what Jewish culture was in the United States of that era. Which I find interesting too. But it's just really well written, and the cast is they're perfect together. So
Cool. Yeah, I've heard a lot of good things and no bad things about that show.
Yeah, that's another one I got my mom into. Yes, yeah. And it's really historically accurate with the clothing and everything. The fact that they film it around New York now, and the way that they go to painstaking lengths to recreate New York of the late 1950s is remarkable.
Wonderful.
I mean, it impresses me, any show or movie that can do that in this day and age where everything is so modern and slick, because even the rural towns in this country still will have a modern Starbucks thrown up here and there. Do you know what I mean? It's just the way progress has happened. Doesn't mean that's
and it's
how
hard
they
to fake New
overall.
York. So I'm glad they did it for real there.
Yeah. But, and it's also, kind of interesting because I'm like, yeah, it reminds you of what you see, because I live here, what you see every day that is still like it was that many years ago. Nice to know that they haven't torn everything down.
Yeah, I feel you.
Anyway, so yeah, that's Marvelous Mrs. Maisel.
Marvelous Mrs. Maisel.
Yes.
I only had one other thing that I recently have watched for fun and not for a podcast or that fits in with a podcast or anything. I watched a documentary. I don't know if this was involved in the Oscars or not, but Behind the Curve.
Okay.
It's a documentary on flat earthers.
Mm-hmm.
It was not, speaking of Women History Month, it was not directed by a woman.
Okay.
But there are a couple prominent women in the flat earth movement, apparently. And it was sort of interesting and sort of scary. The people are, I guess, famous flat earth people.
Right.
They've got a lot of merch, and
Yeah.
there's two characters that are
That's
sort of
crazy.
tying it in with past VD clinics and stuff like that. There are these two flat earth guys that are kind of like the flat earther version of Euronymous Bosch and Vard Virkernus or whatever, those fucking guys from the...
Oh my God.
That are, one of them is saying that the other one is a CIA plant who's owned by Warner Brothers, and the other guy is, there's that flat earther, that you imagine. There's the old guy that lives at his mom's house. There's the lady with sort of non-expressionistic face and dead eyes that's kind of pretty but kind of scary with the things she says. And then there's the guy that's bouncing.
There's always at least one of those.
Yeah.
Always at least one.
And then the speed freak kind of guy that's, talking about how he's on a 30-day Facebook ban right now while he's bouncing ping pong balls on sledgehammers, talking about how, it's all connected and it's a conspiracy to fuck with your head. And he walks up to people in the street and just said, "Hey, did you know that the earth is flat?" And, but there's also these astrophysicists and all these people that work for MIT and Caltech that are sort of talking about their perspective from science and just, like, well, this is an actually easily disprovable thing that you just said. But it's interesting and scary. And I kind of like that some of the scientists said stuff like, maybe we need to talk to these people in ways other than showing them how utterly shameful this idea is. Like, you don't change someone's mind by embarrassing them or something like that. So it was kind of interesting, especially because that's such a, I don't know, like, I wouldn't know how to constructively criticize someone who's convinced that the earth is flat.
I know. It's the same thing as evolution for me. Those people who are so into creationism that they completely discredit evolution, and oh my goodness, it's terrible. And my dad is basically his third career in life or fourth career. I forget the number of, he had so many careers. He's still working on them. And he was a high school biology teacher at a Catholic high school in Alabama. And so I know Alabama public schools had changed their textbooks or were changing their textbooks so that only creationism could be mentioned, like no mention of evolution whatsoever. And so I asked my father, I said, okay, what are you and what is your school doing? And, are you teaching evolution? And he's like, oh, I would quit if they said I couldn't teach evolution. I'm like, okay, I love you. Even though I know sometimes, yes, our religious and political views differ, but thank you. At least we got that one thing right and in common. Like, okay, you get it. And I mean, at least that's one thing I do have with my father is that he does have logic sometimes because he has a scientific background. Because even when he worked for the government, he was an entomologist. He was a scientist. So it it balances this religious stuff. So even though it was a Catholic school though too, and I'm like, okay, and that's also the way that I'm like, the Catholics are a little bit more reasonable than some of the other religions. At least down in the Bible Belt.
Yeah.
I don't know. Just an observation from having lived down there.
I would say that they're less anti-science, at least, whether or not they're reasonable.
Yes. No, they're not completely reasonable. Do not get me wrong. But I'm just saying they at least are not anti-science.
Yeah.
They understand the earth is round. They understand that evolution exists. They get that.
But yeah, it's on
Sorry
Netflix.
to get on it, not to be on a soapbox, but that's one thing I have a hard time with. And I have met people like that, and it's you can't argue. You can't argue. It's painful too.
So,
even as much as you try to be logical and nice and polite, you just can't.
But it's on Netflix, and I would say, I wouldn't say the ending will blow your mind, but if you are frustrated by the lack of logic some people have, there's some really cool stuff throughout, and there's flat earthers that are doing experiments to prove there's no curvature of the earth, and the guy that lives with his mom is you could tell he really likes how famous he is on the internet because of this. It was interesting. That was just the thing that I was like, man, because it's something I relatively ignore because,
Yeah.
there's other more, although, yeah, they're like, well, if that science is fake, then all others are like you're talking about evolution. A lot of these things are linked together because you have to twist this one ridiculous unreality. You have to twist all of reality to fit that perspective. So you have to not believe other things that are, scientific consensus and whatnot. Yeah, behind the curve.
Okay. You're right. It seems like it could be interesting, but that doesn't seem like something I'm like gonna run out and see.
Yeah, I watched it because a couple guys in the psychosemantic group were talking about it.
Mm-hmm.
And
Okay.
I was like, I want to engage in this conversation.
Okay.
Yeah. For you, maybe just watch like the last 15 minutes or so. You might
Okay.
enjoy that the most.
Okay.
Or I can just tell you about it later. But anybody that wants to listen, it's not like the last bit of the movie is the best part, but
How long is it?
Like an hour and 20 minutes or so.
Okay, that's not too bad. As long as it's not like a 2-hour documentary.
No,
That's
no.
when you just start to like some of those you're just like, "Oh my God."
Yeah.
I mean, like
This
I
has a
know,
lot in it.
yeah. I know like Jesus Camp is a little, is that like an hour and 30 or an hour and 45
I
or
think it's
something?
about an hour 45.
Yeah, I think hour and 45. And it's a lot with the evangelical, whatever, in my opinion, for me. But the way it's done, it's just such a well-made documentary.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter the subject matter in a way. Like, you know what I mean? It doesn't, you don't see it as affecting you. At least I didn't feel as affected on a personal level as if maybe another director or had been made a different way, you know.
Yeah,
If
I feel you.
another director presented it differently, it might not have been easy to take. That's all I'm saying. I think it was presented pretty in a pretty just well constructed manner as far as basic narrative of a film.
Yeah.
That's part of, you know what I mean? Like that's part of what helps that is that it's just a well-made documentary. And the fact that it's about these evangelicals is kind of mind-blowing to me. Yeah. And the fact that I could sit through something that long of something that is about that I'm just so not on board with. Like some of the shit that's they say I just am so not on board with, but it's just so engaging and fascinating the way it's just presented.
Yeah. But that's not your final recommendation of this
That is
referral
not.
slips.
Sorry. But actually, my final recommendation is a documentary.
Hey.
Yeah, it is a documentary. I finally caught up with the documentary, which is now on Hulu streaming, RBG, and that came out in 2018, directed by Julie Cohen and Betsy West, and it's pretty interesting. I knew a certain amount of things about Ruth Bader Ginsburg and her life, and it's well done. It of course, of course, it is made from the point of view of people who love her. You know what I mean? Okay. It's not going into it as a kind of. You can't go into it expecting that this is a, just objective, quote unquote, Ken Burns style. You know what I mean? PBS style documentary. This to me is much more of a love fest to some degree. As it is obviously that the filmmakers love Ruth Bader Ginsburg just from the get-go. And that's not a bad thing. I'm not saying it is, but I'm just letting you know that is the slant of where it's all coming from.
They don't necessarily explore her complicated relationship with the Israel-Palestine sort of thing.
No, they're not. I would ideally have liked to have seen something that, yes, did challenge more, some things about her that are less than perfect. And she's done so many great things. You can't deny that, but it's just, yeah, she's not perfect. And that's what, and this is a little hero worship to some extent, but part of what this documentary is looking at is the hero worship that is out there.
Oh, okay.
So it makes sense. So that's why it kind of is like, if you're not on board with that level of love fest, it's okay, because it's presented in a way of it's coming from a point of view of a person who's like, oh no, I'm around these same people. I know what they're going on. I see these people and how she's affected them and their lives and all these different things. So that's kind of interesting, and the fact that examining this kind of like cult of celebrity that RBG has become. Like
Yeah.
it really, seriously.
It's
And
a Supreme Court justice, and people have them on T-shirts and have her on
it's
T-shirts and shit.
it is hysterical to hear Ruth Bader Ginsburg sit there and talk about like her reaction to when they're saying, okay, well, what was your first reaction when you heard that you were be called the notorious RBG, and did you know what that meant? And like what it was alluding to, and did you know what notorious, did you know Biggie Smalls? And so they sat there and were getting Ginsburg's reaction to kind of all this, which was fucking hysterical.
Yeah.
And
I've got that
she-
shirt for my kid, by the way. I'm not saying I'm not saying I'm not a fan.
But it was adorable because she has such a sense of humor about herself. And, it was just, they talk about like in different other things, like also they show bits on like Saturday Night Live where they parody her, where like Kate McKinnon gets up there and plays her and dances and stuff, and she's just she's taking everything in stride, and she just thinks it's all kind of hysterical. And it's interesting that, yeah, I don't know, you just kind of see that also they examine like the amount of hours that she works and all this stuff, and the fact that, yeah, of course they show her working out in the gym, all that kind of thing.
Throwing the medicine ball around.
Yeah. Oh my God, that woman. She could probably kick my ass. I'm saying. But
you would take that beating because we need her to live until the next non-Republican presidency.
Yeah, we do. We do need that. No kidding. Wow. That is absolutely true. So anyway, that is yeah, like I said, it was interesting because it was partly about this like, cult of personality that's been built up around her by her fan base. That's pretty interesting because it's weird to think that anybody has that kind of following that's a Supreme Court justice. Like, think about that. Like, really?
Yeah, they usually have name recognition, or they're famous for possibly sexually harassing their employees.
They might, like, okay, Clarence Thomas, his name, sure,
Yeah.
but
Sandra Day O'Connor.
Exactly. These basic names, but you don't know.
People don't dress up like them for Halloween.
No, exactly. Right. You just don't do it. And except now you do. Even little kids are dressing up as RBG.
Yeah. My kid picked that shirt out himself. He doesn't really know who she is, but, maybe.
No, that's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I've been meaning to check that out. It was on some channel that had commercials, and with commercials, it's like 5 hours long or something like that. I just couldn't. I wanted to wait until I could just sit down and watch it.
Yeah, I watched it on Hulu, so no.
I think they aired it on CNN, and you know how commercial they are.
Oh yeah, well, CNN particularly does add extra commercials.
Yeah.
They pad everything.
So for that reason, and them hiring Jeff Sessions and ex-assistant or whatever to run their coverage of the next election, I will continue to not really pay attention to them.
Yeah.
But we're not that political over here.
Anyway, not always. Sometimes we are, but anyway. So, yeah. So that's my last recommendation. Do you have anything else? Are you good?
No, I recommend you tune in next month or next week or tune in soon for our next themed VD Clinic episode.
Yes.
That's my final recommendation. And also find us on Instagram and Twitter at VD Clinic Pod, or email at, I don't know how often people email anymore.
No, we get emails sometimes. Usually it's Robert Ward. Thank you.
And so we will be doing episode 20. Do I have this timed correctly?
Yes. No.
Okay. So yeah, will be episode 23. The Michael Jordan number, who played for North Carolina in March Madness, our March Madness episode.
Yes, thank you for tying it back. And also considering it's March and Women's History Month, we're covering Aileen Wuonos this year. I did not intentionally do that. And this film is also directed by a female, by the way. Did not intentionally do that.
We're
Sorry,
so
Darren,
good
go
we
ahead.
don't even have to work at it. No, and the book, you recommended the book, so I trust you to say the title correctly.
So the movie is Monster, directed by Patty Jenkins, starring Charlize Theron and Christina Ricci, and which I just rewatched right before we recorded today. So I'm already having thoughts. Anyway.
I watched it last week.
Yes. Discussion for later, obviously. Anyway, and the book, which I actually finished, was it yesterday or the day before? Is called Monster, My True Story by Aileen Wuonos and Christopher Barry D. something like that. I don't know. Forget the co-writer's name off the top of my head.
Her and her ghostwriter.
Yes, I did not know I was going to be prompted at this second. Sorry.
No,
I was not prepared. I'm sorry.
I went way past the thing, and I think your correction or your pronunciation is correct.
Okay. Thank you, Zora, for the thud.
We may have a special guest with us, like we try to do on occasion.
Yes, that is true. Yes, exactly. We've got thoughts there, but anyway, but actually, one thing I wanted to say before we go. So you had messaged me, and I think it's hysterical, and I think you need to share that you watched for the first time with your son, your almost 4-year-old son, Whatever Happened to Baby Jane.
Well, I came in while he was watching it with his mom.
Okay. So anyway, and please share, what is his name for it? What is he calling that movie?
It's called Sending a Letter to Daddy or something like that. Right? Is that what I said? I have to check it out. Yeah.
Yes, that's what you said. Sending a letter to Daddy. It's true, that song plays over and over and over again. I get it.
And that's how he'll probably start calling it that, because he calls Chitty Chitty Bang Bang Bitty Bitty Bang Bang, but for the longest time he called Big Trouble in Little China the Jack Burton truck movie, which is...
That makes sense.
Yeah. So
I get it.
He's
It's
asked...
descriptive?
Huh?
It's descriptive?
Yeah. And he has asked to watch Sending a Letter to Daddy again, and we had deleted it off our DVR, and he was pissed off, but it came back around. So okay. I don't know, perhaps I'll have to buy it now.
Okay.
But yeah, Sending a Letter to Daddy. And It's okay. His mom tries to cover his eyes in the scary parts, and he's, pulling her fingers away.
Yeah.
Like you do when you show your children possibly inappropriate things. But
Right.
if he says it's scary, we don't say, watch it anyway, motherfucker. It's...
You're not like my father. No, I'm kidding. My dad didn't do that. He wasn't that horrible, however.
Yeah, so...
He was questionable.
But yeah, and Amanda said, you got to tell Vanessa about this.
I appreciate it. Well, no, and I wanted you to bring that up since we had covered it on the show. I just thought it was that was great. I hadn't even shared that with David, so.
Yeah, that was one of his episodes.
Fine. That was episode number 2.
After Showgirls, right?
Yes.
But
anyway.
Yeah. Anyway.
I felt that you needed to share that.
Yeah.
So.
Little side tangent down memory lane, and we are back here at the end of another VD Clinic podcast referral slip.
Yes. I'm Vanessa, and you are?
I believe I am still Daeron.
Okay. Thank you, and goodbye.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to another episode of the VD Clinic. If you'd like to get in touch with us, you can find us at Twitter at VDClinicPod or reach us via email at vdclinicpod@gmail.com. We also have a Facebook group, VD Clinic Podcast. We'd love to hear your feedback, suggestions, and more.